Elijah Boone stood beneath the buzzing fluorescent lights of the garage one last time. His hands scallowed, scarred, and steady hung by his sides as Travis Kincaid leaned back in a leather office chair that hadn't been there 6 months ago. The young owner, white, clean-shaven, and smug in his fitted blazer, barely looked up as Elijah stepped inside. "You wanted to see me?" Elijah asked, voice low and even. Travis didn't respond right away. He tapped a silver pen against a spreadsheet printout like it was a game. "Yeah, Eli. Come in. Close the door." Elijah didn't move. The door stayed open. "I'll be direct," Travis continued. "We're making a few adjustments, streamlining the team. Younger guys, tech-certified, faster turnaround. You know how it is." Elijah tilted his head slightly. "I've been with this shop since Carter started it in '88. I trained 3 of the kids on that floor. I am the turnaround." Travis gave a tight smile. "It's not personal." "Don't tell me it's not personal when I gave this place my knees, my eyesight, and 35 years of my life," Elijah said, his jaw tightening. "Carter brought me on when no other shop in town would take a black man unless he was mopping floors." Travis finally looked up. "Look, I'm not denying your value, Eli. You've got legacy. But investors are watching margins. Insurance premiums go up with age. Customers expect a modern image now." "A modern image," Elijah repeated, voice thick with contempt. "And what does that mean exactly? No wrinkles? No melanin?" Travis shrugged, unbothered. "We're trying to stay competitive." "So you're saying a 78-year-old black man in coveralls makes people uncomfortable?" Travis didn't answer, but the silence was enough. On the desk sat a folder with Elijah's name printed neatly across the front. Travis nudged it toward him. "There's a severance package. It's fair. Few months of pay, enough to retire maybe. Spend time with the grandkids." "I don't have grandkids." "Well," Travis said with a hollow chuckle, "all the more time for fishing or whatever it is old-timers do." Elijah didn't touch the folder. His fingers curled into fists, so tight his knuckles cracked. "And what about the people who come here and ask for me by name? What do you tell them?" "We'll say you moved on," Travis said flatly, gracefully. "Gracefully," Elijah muttered. "You want me to leave quiet, just fade out." "I want to keep things clean," Travis replied, standing up now. "No drama." Elijah turned to go but stopped in the doorway. His back was to Travis when he spoke. "You think this town forgets, but it doesn't. They know who built this place. You can take my name off the door, but you can't take it out of their mouths." Travis scoffed. "We'll see." Elijah walked through the garage, past the row of younger mechanics who suddenly had too much interest in their lug nuts. Not one of them made eye contact. One nodded faintly, guilty. Another smirked in relief. And on the wall above his old station, where a plaque used to read Elijah Boone, Master Technician, there was nothing, just clean drywall, like he'd never existed. Outside, the January wind bit into his skin as he walked to his truck, an old '89 Ford that coughed when it started. He threw his toolbox into the bed without ceremony. The weight felt heavier than usual. 35 years, gone. Not for failing, not for wrongdoing, but because he didn't fit the look anymore. As he pulled away, he didn't glance back. Not because it didn't matter, but because it did, and he knew it would burn if he did. That shop had grease in the floors and sweat in the walls, most of it his. And now, they wanted it polished and whitewashed, no trace of the hands that built it. They'd erased him. But Elijah Boone wasn't finished. Not yet. The porch light flickered overhead as Elijah Boone stepped out of his truck and into the stillness of his front yard. Gravel crunched beneath his boots. The same boots he'd worn every day for over a decade. Black leather, split at the seams, soles worn down like the years had sanded them smooth. His house was modest, single story, peeling paint along the window frames, a rusted mailbox that still bore his late wife's name, Boone, E.M., the kind of home that whispered memories with every creak of the floorboards. He stepped inside and closed the door behind him. Silence fell, thick and complete. No hum of machinery, no clanging of tools, no radio playing old blues tracks from the corner shelf in Bay 3. Just silence. He set his toolbox on the kitchen table and sat down slowly. The cushion wheezed under his weight like it, too, was tired. His fingers traced the rim of a coffee mug that hadn't been used since Sunday. The ring it left on the table seemed darker now. Across the room, framed on the wall, was a photo that never moved. Him and Henry Caldwell, the shop's founder, a white man with a wide smile and coal-stained knuckles. The year was 1988. Elijah stood beside him, young then, straight-backed, wearing the same overalls he was fired in today. Henry had taken a chance when no one else in this county would. Elijah still remembered the look the other men gave him that first day. Suspicion. Contempt. One even muttered, "Carter's gonna learn the hard way why folks like him stick to landscaping." But Henry hadn't budged. "He's not here to fit in," he said. "He's here to fix cars." And Elijah had. Damn well too. Brake lines, suspensions, electrical rewiring, no matter the make or model, he gave it the same care. Over time, the sneers faded. Customers started asking for the quiet black fella, because they knew he wouldn't lie. He didn't smile much, but he delivered. Still, even as decades passed, Elijah had known what he was to them, tolerated but not truly accepted. Like the oil under their nails, there but never spoken of. He stood and walked to the living room, where a shadowed shelf held a few mementos, a folded flag from his Army service, his old ASE certification, and a faded copy of a 1992 article in the Hollow Creek Chronicle, first black master mechanic in Carter County. First, the word never stopped cutting. He hadn't wanted the title. He'd wanted to be a mechanic, not the black mechanic. But that was the burden. He had to be twice as good, twice as quiet, and never once wrong. And now, after 35 years, it hadn't saved him. He leaned against the counter, hands gripping the edge. The house felt colder, empty, not just from the loss of work, but from the quiet realization he'd never been one of them. He had been useful. And now that he no longer served their image, he was disposable. His gaze returned to the photo with Henry. "What would you have said, old man?" he whispered. "Would you have stopped him?" He knew the answer. Henry would have fought. But Henry had been gone for 10 years, and in his absence, the rot had crept in. Quiet, calculating, white-collar rot that wore smiles and shook hands, but never saw Elijah as anything more than background noise. Elijah moved to the window and looked out over his street. Porches lit up with blue-white television flickers. Families eating dinner, kids dragging trash bins to the curb. Life going on. But not for him. Not today. He stepped back into the kitchen, sat at the table again, and this time picked up the phone. No idea who to call, but he knew one thing. He wasn't going to sit quietly and let history repeat itself. Elijah tightened his T-note that it mattered much. The fabric was stiff from disuse. The color faded from years in the back of a closet. He hadn't worn a tie since Henry's funeral. But today, he felt he had to look presentable, respectable, or at least undeniable. He stepped into Lou's auto, tire just before 9. The garage was bustling, hydraulic lifts hissing, sockets clanking, a faint cloud of brake dust hanging in the air. He recognized the place. Years ago, he taught Lou's nephew how to change a master cylinder in under 10 minutes. A young white man at the front desk barely glanced up. "Can I help you?" "I'm here to speak with Lou," Elijah said. "About?" "Work." The man looked him over, from tie to calloused hands. "Experience?" 35 years, master certified, full drivetrain, diagnostics, electrical. A pause, then a shallow smile. "Sorry, we're not hiring right now, but we'll, keep you in mind." Elijah nodded, more out of habit than hope. As he turned to leave, he heard the receptionist say to someone behind the counter, "Old school guy just came in. Didn't have the look we're going for." He left without a word. At Martin's garage, the response was worse. "Sir, we've already filled the position," the manager said quickly, glancing past Elijah as though searching for someone more palatable. "You didn't even ask my name," Elijah replied calmly. "Don't need to. Look, man, we're moving toward digital diagnostics, touchscreens. It's a young man's game now." Elijah forced a polite smile, though inside something twisted. "I've been teaching digital diagnostics since you were in middle school." The manager shifted awkwardly. "Yeah, well, customers get nervous if they don't see the kind of face they expect." There it was. No spin, no sugar. Just the kind of raw, quiet bigotry Elijah had learned to read between syllables. By mid-afternoon, he'd stopped by 5 more shops. Each one gave the same rehearsed reasons: budgets, insurance, efficiency. At West Ridge Auto, a place where he once fixed the owner's truck for free on Christmas Eve, he was told with a straight face, "We're going with a younger demographic." At the last stop, he waited 20 minutes in the lobby before someone finally emerged. A receptionist, a black woman, maybe in her early 30s, looked startled to see him. "Oh, sir, were you waiting long?" "Just hoping to leave a resume," he said, offering the paper with steady hands. She read it, eyes widening. "Elijah Boone. My dad used to talk about you. You trained at Carter? Kincaid?" "I was one of the first," he nodded. "I'm sorry," she said, gently handing the paper back. "They're not hiring. They don't say it, but I know what's going on. You deserve better than what they're doing." Elijah swallowed hard. "What are they doing?" She hesitated, then dropped her voice. "They're cleaning house. No more older techs. And definitely not anyone who might not fit the image." He stared at her a moment, heart heavy, jaw tight. "I appreciate your honesty. I wish I had better news." He climbed back into his truck and sat behind the wheel as the sun dipped low in the sky. The day had bled out of him. His tie lay crumpled in the passenger seat, like a defeated flag. He stared through the windshield at nothing in particular. The same hands that once rebuilt engines now gripped the wheel like a lifeline. He wasn't just being shut out for his age, that he could have prepared for, but the way they looked at him like he didn't belong in their world anymore, that carved deeper than any layoff notice. "Too black, too old, too honest," he muttered bitterly. "Hell of a resume." His phone buzzed in his coat pocket. A text from a friend he'd called earlier. "Sorry, man. Not a good time. Hope you're well." Elijah didn't respond. Didn't need to. He put the truck in gear and drove on. Streetlights blinking to life as the town continued without him. The sun was beginning to dip behind the ridgeline when Elijah spotted it barely visible behind a cluster of overgrown hedges and a rusted fence. The sign out front read Williams Auto, though the S had long since fallen off, leaving behind ghost lettering and spiderwebs. Weeds had overtaken the lot. A busted Dodge sat on 3 wheels out front like a dying animal, its hood agape. Elijah pulled over without knowing why. He stepped out of the truck and stood still for a moment, staring at the building. The faded yellow siding, the oil-stained concrete, the roof sagged at the middle like it was tired of holding itself up. And yet, it pulled at something deep inside him. This shop hadn't crossed his mind in years, not since he was 17, back when black men weren't allowed on this side of town unless they were collecting garbage or fixing someone else's fence. Back then, this place had belonged to a man named Harold Williams. White, mean. The kind who didn't waste slurs, just locked his doors when a black kid walked by. Elijah had tried to apply here once, before Carter took him in. He remembered the way Harold looked him up and down through the glass, and then turned the sign to "closed" without saying a word. "You don't belong here, boy." The memory scraped against his ribs like sandpaper. But now the place stood quiet. Empty. Forgotten. Elijah stepped through the gate. The lock had rusted clean off. Inside, the air was thick with dust and rot. Broken fan belts lay coiled in corners like dead snakes. A cracked window let in a sliver of light that fell across an old lift, long seized and coated in grime. Still, the bones were here. He walked the floor, fingers trailing along old workbenches, discarded cans of brake cleaner, a cracked headlight. He stopped in front of a rusted steel toolbox, old but sturdy, the kind built before plastic and shortcuts. This shop, with all its decay, had something Carter Kincaid no longer had. Memory, grit, a history that wasn't polished clean for brochures. He closed his eyes and listened. No hissing air compressor, no voices, no radio humming Otis Redding from the corner. But in the silence, he heard it all anyway. He could see it, young men learning, not from manuals, but from their hands, oil on their shirts, respect in their tone, no upsells, no gimmicks, just work, done right. Elijah opened the back door and let the sunlight stream in. Dust motes danced through the beam like spirits. This was the kind of place they said he could never own, that his kind should work in, not run. But times had changed. Or maybe they hadn't and he was just tired of waiting for permission. Elijah leaned against the doorframe, breathing in the scent of oil and metal. A memory surfaced of Carter once telling him, "If they won't give you a seat at the table, build your own damn bench." Well, here was the bench. It was falling apart. It needed work. It needed everything. But it was his, if he wanted it. A quiet laugh escaped Himlo, dry but alive. He could almost see the cars lining up, not because of a flashy ad or a glossy logo, but because people remembered Elijah Boone. And in a town like this, trust was currency. He turned back inside and walked the floor once more. No papers, no permits, not yet, just resolve. Where they once said he didn't belong, he now stood with both feet planted, eyes steady. He wasn't asking anymore. He was claiming. Elijah was already knee-deep in dust and broken glass when he heard the tires crunching slowly over gravel. He straightened from under a sagging workbench, back stiff, breath short. Whoever it was had cut the engine but left the door open. Footsteps followed, measured, confident. Then came the voice. "Mr. Boone?" He turned, blinking through a shaft of sunlight slicing through the busted garage window. A woman stood in the doorway, framed by light and shadow, tall, brown skin, neatly pressed uniform, badge gleaming, Officer Maya Patel. Everyone in Hollow Creek knew her straight shooter, rarely smiled, always watching. She wasn't known for small talk or showing sides. Elijah wiped his hands on a rag and nodded. "That's me." She stepped in, eyes scanning the shop. Didn't think anyone was still using this place. "Most don't," he said. "I guess that makes two of us." She walked slowly, noting the scattered bolts, the busted jack, the cracked floor. "Heard about what happened at Carter, Kincaid," she said, almost like an afterthought. "Rough way to treat a man after 35 years. Elijah shrugged, but not because it didn't matter. He just refused to give Travis Kincaid the power of his anger. "I'm not here about that," she added. "At least, not officially." That got his attention. She leaned against a support beam, arms crossed. "You know the town's talking, not loud, but it's there. Folks noticed when your name disappeared, and folks noticed who replaced you." Elijah looked away. "People talk. Doesn't mean they care." She studied him. "I do." He met her gaze. She didn't blink. "I'm not here to offer sympathy," she continued. "I'm here because you've got something this town needs." Elijah raised a brow. "What's that?" "Memory, accountability, skill." She motioned to the garage. "Places like this? They used to be run by men who fixed more than just cars. They kept neighborhoods running, taught kids how to work with their hands, kept businesses honest. Now it's all apps and markups. And Travis? He's got investors, not ethics." "You looking to hire a mechanic, Officer Patel?" She almost smiled. "No, but I can help you reopen this place. Zoning, licenses, contacts. I know people who owe me favors. Some of them used to be your customers." Elijah frowned. "Why?" Her answer came easy. "Because I've watched how justice works in this town, who it shows up for, and who it forgets." That landed heavier than any toolbox. She stepped closer, less a cop now, more something else. "You don't have to take charity, but you shouldn't let pride stop you from accepting partnership." He looked around the garage again. The lift was rusted, the windows cracked, but the bones were still strong, and so was he. Elijah exhaled slowly. "I didn't think anyone noticed." "Most don't, but some of us do." A long pause passed. Finally, he extended his hand. "You get me the paperwork, I'll do the rest." She shook it, firm and steady. "Deal." As she turned to leave, she glanced back. "And Mr. Boone?" "Yeah?" She nodded toward the empty lot. "You might want to sweep the drive. Something tells me traffic's about to pick up." Then she was gone. Elijah watched her cruiser disappear down the road, a cloud of dust in its wake. He didn't move for a moment. Justice hadn't arrived in fanfare. No sirens, no headlines. Just a woman in uniform, quietly choosing to stand beside him instead of looking away. And in that, Elijah saw the first crack in the wall that had kept him out for far too long. He picked up a broom. Time to make space for what was coming. The shop was beginning to feel like something again. By day, Elijah cleaned and repaired what he could, replacing rotted wiring, reassembling cabinets, salvaging tools from junkyards. Officer Patel had come through. The permit paperwork was fast-tracked. A few old customers had stopped by, curious and cautious, offering small job soil changes, tire rotations. Word was spreading, quiet but real. Each night, Elijah locked the gate with a chain that rattled like old bones. He left tired, sore, but lighter. Until Thursday morning. He knew something was wrong the moment he pulled into the lot. The gate was ajar, chain snapped and curled like a snake in the dust. His stomach dropped. He parked sideways and ran across the gravel. The front door hung open. Inside, chaos. Tools scattered, drawers ripped out and dumped across the floor. The radio he'd just bought shattered. Oil cans spilled and smeared like someone had tried to paint over the concrete. But that wasn't the worst of it. In the back corner, where he'd kept his father's old toolbox, the one with initials carved in the lid, was gone. Just gone. Elijah stood frozen. His breath came in short, sharp bursts. He wasn't just staring at destruction. He was staring at a message. Not theft. Not vandalism. Warning. Behind him, a pickup screeched to a halt. Tomas Aguilar jumped out, an older Latino man who'd worked next door at a radiator shop in the 90s. Elijah had once helped his teenage son rebuild a carburetor after hours. Tomas looked around, eyes wide with fury. Dios mío. Who did this? Elijah didn't have to say it. They both knew. Travis. Tomas clenched his fists. We call the cops. This is criminal. Elijah's jaw locked. And say what? That a rich white man with no fingerprints walked in and trashed my shop? He'll deny it. Say I staged it for attention. Tomas looked like he wanted to argue, but he stopped. Elijah knelt beside the shattered bench and picked up a broken wrench. His hands trembled. Officer Patel arrived 10 minutes later. She said nothing at first, just walked the scene, taking photos, logging damage. When she approached Elijah, her face was unreadable. You have any suspects? Elijah looked her dead in the eye. I have no proof, but I know who did this. She nodded slowly. Understood. I'll file the report. But you need to be ready, Mr. Boone. For what? For more. By noon, word had spread across Hollow Creek. Cars pulled in. People gasped at the mess. One elderly woman crossed her arms and said aloud what everyone was thinking. This is what happens when you challenge men like Travis. Elijah stood among them, silent. He didn't shout, didn't weep, but something inside him hardened. They had tried to erase him again through fear, through cowardice. But they hadn't broken him. Not this time. By sundown, 5 people had returned with mops, rags, and coffee. One man brought a new toolbox empty, but waiting. And for the first time in years, Elijah Boone didn't feel alone in the fight. The next morning, Elijah arrived to find the lot buzzing not with engines, but with people. Word of the break-in had traveled fast, and Hollow Creek had answered. A teenage boy swept glass from the driveway. A retired black schoolteacher donated an old compressor. A local baker brought warm bread and simply said, for strength. One by one, they came out just to watch, but to stand. Inside the garage, a young woman with paint-streaked jeans handed Elijah a spray can. Hope you don't mind, she said. On the door, she had painted in bold white letters, Dignity works here. Across town, Travis heard. He sent whispers Elijah was stirring trouble, chasing pity, but no one was listening anymore. A high schooler live-streamed Elijah fixing a carburetor. Comments poured in. Finally, someone honest. Tired of being scammed. I'm bringing my car next week. Elijah didn't smile, but his posture changed. Straighter, firmer. They had tried to destroy him. Instead, they reminded everyone why he was worth remembering. And Hollow Creek was watching now not just what Elijah would build, but who would try to tear it down again. Travis arrived late in the afternoon, stepping out of his sleek black SUV like he still owned the town. But this time, he wasn't met with silence. He was met with eyes watching from every corner of the lot. Elijah stood in front of the shop, hands stained with grease, chest rising steady. Officer Patel stood beside him, arms crossed. Not a word spoken, but her presence said enough. You made your point, Travis said, forcing a smirk. Elijah's voice was calm. I didn't have to. The town made it for me. Travis looked around at the painted sign. The line of customers, the laughter from inside. And for once, he had nothing clever left to say. He turned, climbed back into his SUV, and drove off slowly, headlights fading behind him. Elijah exhaled. Behind him, someone called, "Mr. Boone, got a radiator issue." Laughter followed. A young boy waved. The shop was alive. He stepped back inside. He hadn't won a war, hadn't simply endured one. And that endurance had shown others what real strength looked like. Not pride or power, but purpose. He picked up his wrench and got back to work. Because dignity never rusts.